To me, the NFL draft is one of the great weekends on the sports calendar. Unless you're a Baylor fan, this is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by FanDuel. I am your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas. Thank you. Thank you very much for making it your first listen today and every day. Well, this is going to be a football-heavy show, and one thing that was not Baylor-heavy was the NFL draft. We'll talk about what ends up being, quite honestly, an embarrassing weekend for the Bears as over 250 selections go by and no Bears are taken. But on the actual Baylor side of things, it's been a productive week of bringing in some new players on the defensive side of the ball, plugging up some holes that they really needed to. And then finally, it's still chaos in the Baylor basketball annals in terms of bringing players in and in terms of bringing coaches in. But that coaching bench might be closed for business, as we are hearing names surrounding who Scott Drew is going to bring in to the fray. But starting with the NFL draft, which for my money is the best TV event of the year, especially that Thursday night, round one. You want to see, as a college fan, we all have our NFL teams that we want to see pick, but as a college fan, you are so ready to see one of your guys go and take the next step and get selected in the NFL draft. And for, a good portion of, for most of us rooting for Baylor, a lot of times that does include Baylor Bears. This year, it did not. It really did not. In fact, the silence surrounding Baylor's prospects in the NFL draft is deafening. And it was the first time since 2018 that no Baylor Bear was selected in the NFL draft. And they became one of 11 Power 5 programs that did not have a player selected in the NFL draft. Oklahoma State, which is a bit surprising considering their success the last few years, Colorado, Northwestern, Nebraska, Arizona State, Syracuse, Indiana, Vanderbilt, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, and Baylor. Let me make this clear. If the antennas didn't go up right away, this is not the company that you want to be in college football. Oklahoma State's a fine program. Other than that, all the other programs on this list are putrid. They are not where you want to be. Syracuse, Indiana, Northwestern, Nebraska. We laugh at these schools every year. Colorado, 4-8. Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech stink. Although Virginia Tech did make a bowl game. But these teams, for the last 5 or 10 years, for the most part, these schools suck at football. And here is Baylor, 2.5 years removed from a top 5 final ranking, now amongst them in terms of producing NFL talent. And let's not kid ourselves, on the field in the regular season, from 6-6, from 10-2 in the regular season to 6-6 to 3-9. That is not a positive trend. And I know we all remember the 2022 NFL draft. That was a really fun one for us Baylor fans. We had a ton of guys go. But this is not an anomaly, having 0. Yeah, it hasn't happened in 6 years, but the signs were on the wall. Just like the signs are poor right now in terms of year-to-year results. Dave Aranda has been a part of 4 draft classes at Baylor. Okay. In 2021, they had 1 player drafted, William Bradley King. In 2022, they had 6. All right, we've turned this thing around. They are all recruited by rule, but we're turning this thing around. 2023, 1 draft pick, Siaki Ika, and bottoming out. The only way you can get less than 1 draft pick is what Baylor did this year by getting completely shut out of the NFL draft. The last 2 seasons, they have had 1 guy drafted. Like South Dakota State is putting multiple guys in the NFL draft every year. Baylor can't muster 1. So if you want to see a measuring stick of a college football program, Right now, Baylor's head coach ain't developing talent on the field in the college game and not developing talent for the next level. I mean, everything that we look at points to 2021 being an anomaly. The season, the postseason, and the NFL draft. Because I can't lie to you guys, this is embarrassing to go through 3 days and not have anyone drafted. And, maybe this is unfair, but I don't even really hold that against the players. They're out there. They're, for the most part, as far as we know, they're trying their hardest. They're giving it all for the team. But the last couple of years, you have not had a coaching staff that has developed them for the next level, nor have they developed them to win on this level. And I sincerely believe that is changing. I do. I like the guys that Dave Aranda has brought in this year, and they have produced NFL talent at their other stops. But right now, you have a head coach that hasn't done that. And it starts at the top. And it's just been a precipitous downfall of this program. Again, on the recruiting trail, in the regular season where it actually counts, and also preparing guys for the next level. That said, there were 4 Bears that signed as undrafted free agents. Gabe Hall went to the Eagles. Clark Barrington and TJ Franklin both went to the Raiders. And Byron Vaughns stays here in Texas to play for the Cowboys. Gabe Hall was someone who had gotten some draft hype early in the cycle, so to speak, early in the offseason. Had a good Senior Bowl, really impressed there. Had some scouts looking at him as even somehow as high as a day 2 pick. Doesn't get picked at all. And that is too bad. Especially thinking of Gabe Hall with that momentum early in the off season, where you're like, man, this guy is impressing at the Senior Bowl. He's got scouts salivating over him, but why wasn't he making more of an impact in the season? What was the disconnect here? And now we see him not even drafted. And it's too bad, because I mean, the draft days were fun days as Baylor fans. They really were. And instead, they're very few and far between. I think my freshman year in 2015 to the 2016 NFL draft, they also had 5 or 6 guys drafted. And, they didn't all turn out to be stars, of course, but it was a good measuring stick of what your program was able to do. And by the way, that's a terrific thing to show to recruits. You're not only going to win at this level, but we're going to put you at the next level. And right now, Baylor cannot say that. And it's something they've been able to say for decades, really. Even when things weren't going well, they would put guys in the NFL. I mean, coming off an 2008 season where they were 4-8, they had the number 2 pick in the draft that year in Jason Smith. So this is not like, oh, well, they just stink, because they've stunk in the past and put guys in the NFL. And right now, you're getting the worst of both. Last 2 years, you've heard a Baylor name called once, and it was on day 3. So it's just not a good deal. I guess it was day 2. He was a 3rd round pick. It's not a great situation if you're looking to win in the Big 12 and you're looking to compete at the next level. And that's sad to say. But I will say, there were plenty of positives to take from the Baylor football program in terms of the 2024 edition in the early parts of this week. Of that, there is no doubt. And if you want to get out to McLean next year and root this team on and hopefully surprise some people, well, the only way to do it is through Gametime, okay? So when you're looking at games, concerts, comedy shows, theater, the only place to go is Gametime, because you're not getting fooled. What you see is what you get, okay? When you go on a Gametime's website, you see the all-in pricing. That is the price you're going to pay. You're going to see the view from your seats. You're going to see what the best deals are, and you're going to have zone deals and flash deals throughout the week. And if you go and find another ticketing website that has a better deal in your section, in your row, Gametime is going to credit you 110% of the difference. They have the best customer service in the entire ticket buying game. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, Use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege, locked on COLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, and that, of course, is guaranteed. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. We've got so much in the sports world going on right now. NBA playoffs, thrilling. NHL playoffs too. Baseball's in full swing. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed, which makes FanDuel the best place to bet on every game. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. So what are you waiting for, man? Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and make your first bet an automatic win. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The good news from Baylor football, end of the weekend and into this week, is the hat trick of defenders that they were able to bring into the program earlier this week. Of course, we talked about Snacks Johnson transferring back from Arkansas. I still have not found, and I got to admit, I didn't look too hard, but I still have not found someone who has left in the transfer portal, gone to another seemingly bigger program, but really just to another Power 5 program, spent a year there, and then come back. I have not found that yet, but we're happy that Snacks is potentially just blazing a trail here for future generations. That was the big one, the name that we know, but also Alinus Noel. I've heard Alinus and Alinus, so I'm going to go with Alinus. I hope I'm not saying that wrong. A nose tackle out of Texas Southern, and JaQues Evans, the edge man from Western Kentucky. And I mean, first and foremost, again, I'm not going to claim that I watched all of these games, but those are your two biggest positions of needs, at least ones that Dave Aranda highlighted after the spring game. I would still say offensive line is a need. They feel okay about that position, but definitely you just didn't have the personnel whatsoever at nose tackle, the interior of the defensive line, and you didn't have a pass rusher. You really had one last year, and that was Gabe Hall. And now he's hopefully playing for the Eagles next year. So you really needed help there. The Jamar Chaney effect certainly helped with that. But I'll start with Alinus Noel, who is one that, again, fills probably the biggest hole, no pun intended, because it wasn't like a physically big hole that was left at nose tackle. Baylor, of course, had two nose tackles announced the first day of spring practice that they had to medically retire. Obviously kind of out of their control. Jarrell Boykins being one of those, a guy who came in with some hype out of a community college in Kansas. I believe that was Hutchinson. And so just a tough blow day one, right? To hear both of those guys having to medically retire. And so all of a sudden it's like, what are you going to get? I mean, we knew this transfer portal was going to open in mid-April, but it was like, who is going to be left there? And today, April 30th, is technically the day it's closed. So you might see the schools do have time to process it. So you might see official commitments in the day or two after. But today, April 30th, is the day it is supposed to close. But Alinus Noel, you get a big guy. Not tall, big, but big. 6'2" and 330 pounds as a junior. I was talking about this with Matt Mosley on the Matt Mosley Show, and he likened him to Bravion Roy, one of Matt Rule's favorites, which I think is a good comp. Not a 6'6" guy, but a 6'2" and somewhat mobile, big fella at the nose tackle. And obviously Bravion Roy was great at plugging up the middle. Left a lot of room for James Lynch to do his thing in 2019. Very good defense. He even blocked some kicks that year. But Alinus Noel, on his third program, played a couple years at Nichols and then one at Texas Southern, most recently in 2023. 52 tackles last year, 22 of them by himself, 7.5 tackles for loss, and 3.5 sacks. So I know that's a level below the Big 12, sure, but that shows me that he was overpowering guys at that level. That because nose tackles aren't known for getting a ton of sacks. And 3.5 sacks, that's nothing to sneeze at, especially at the nose tackle position. He is someone who can get in that backfield a little bit. And for a nose tackle, that usually means pure power. And in some cases, because you have such good speed on the edge, that does allow some holes in the A and the B gap in the center of this line of scrimmage. I won't get too far into it, but that's why you saw Siaki Ika get into the backfield quite a bit in that 2021 season and not as much in the 22 season, although he was still productive. So I love bringing in the big hog molly in the middle, man. I think that is a big, big get. We talked with Will Turboff on the show, who I'm looking to have on this program this week. Bears Illustrated 247 Sports. He's on top of it all. He talked to Mr. Noel, and the nose tackle said, man, I didn't have a lot of time with Baylor, but I was ready to commit to Baylor. He also visited Arkansas over the weekend, came to Baylor basically that same day, and had a little bit of Saturday and a little bit of Sunday, from what I understand, to talk with Baylor. And by the time his head hit the pillow on Saturday, he was ready to commit. So that's someone who's bought in, and I love that, and ready to take that next step. Another guy like that is JaQues Evans, who, boy, this is an exciting one for me. Comes from Western Kentucky. Obviously, Jamar Chaney was coaching at Western Kentucky before this season. This is the second Hilltopper you've been able to get. Kendrick Simpkins at safety, now JaQues Evans at the edge. And boy, this guy can produce, okay? 6'2", junior. Didn't play a lot this season, actually missed half the games. He missed the last 6. He had a lower leg injury that knocked him out for the season. Even in those first 6 games, he had 30 tackles, a tackle for a loss, a sack, a forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries. So he's still producing. But in 22, he was one of the best defensive players in the conference. He was first team All-Conference USA. And coming into 2023, he had all kinds of hype, okay? He was on the preseason watch list for the Bednarik Award, the Nagurski Award, the Butkus Award, and was the preseason Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year. That was coming off a monster season where he had over 100 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 9 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, and a blocked kick, lining up in the 5 technique on the edge. Man, this guy could eat. And I love, again, I'm an amateur scout. To call me an amateur scout would be insulting to actual amateur scouts, but seeing his tape, he's got some speed on the outside. He really does. He uses his speed a lot to his advantage when it comes to getting in the backfield. And I hope that this injury didn't slow him down, but you never know. I see these guys with all kinds of production and are ready to take the next step. And it's obviously very hit or miss. I mean, it reminds me, the production numbers obviously is a different position. This guy played on the interior defensive line, but the production numbers remind me a lot of Jackson Player when he was at Tulsa. And that was in 2021. The Waco product transfers to Baylor and really didn't do a lot in that 1 year with the Bears. That defensive line was a disappointment in 22. So, there's good and bad with all of it. But in the case of JaQues Evans, you're not pulling all SEC, all Big Ten guys on the defensive end. Virtually nobody is, by the way. So, yeah, it's a step below in Conference USA, but when you see that kind of production, that shows me that a kid, he's not going to get fooled by a lot. They might be a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger at this in the Big 12, but he ain't getting fooled. He knows how to play this game, and he has done it at a high level with a ton of production. So I think that could be like a sleeper for your best pickup of the year. Obviously, DeQuan Finn will get that kind of hype because he'll be the starting quarterback. I do like Evans' old teammate, Kendrick Simpkins, as well. Many of you know that. But I really like the kind of production that this guy brings. And those are two that wrap and bubble wrap till the beginning of the season. You need those guys big time to help out on that defensive line, which is really, like the rest of the team, been in kind of a tailspin, I would say, since 2021. This could fix a lot of problems for them on that defensive side. Guys like Evans and Noel, and then shoring up your defensive backfield with someone like Snacks Johnson. All right, y'all, time out here. Time out. We got to pause to talk more about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying. Flag it. No, you've already talked about that, but there's so much more in this game. In Monopoly Go, you could team up with your friends for those timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you can unlock. And there is so much to get. Okay. You can have unique stickers that you can trade with your friends, complete the albums, big prizes there. You got cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. And you've even got emojis that you can taunt those other friends with when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko game as well. And there's always new timed events that can help you win big, like massive multipliers or for everything you win or your rent frenzies. There's always been something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now for free on Google Play or at the App Store. All right, timeout over. Game back on. Football going through a lot of changes, of course. Basketball very, very much in that same realm. And it's been a mix of good and bad once again at the beginning of this week for Baylor basketball. Now, the good part of it is Scott Drew has pretty much finalized that staff, in fact, there we go. Jeff Goodman, who we know gets a lot of great scoops from Baylor, has said that Scott has hired his two guys. He has only named one. He said Baylor coach Scott Drew now has a pair of openings on his staff, and Link Academy's Bill Armstrong is expected to fill one of them. A source told the Field of 68 should be official by the end of the week. So we have a good idea that is one. We don't know the other one yet. Don't have much insight on that. But Bill Armstrong comes from Link Academy. You might have heard of it as like it's one of these major high school basketball factories at this point. Jacoby Walter spent his last season at Link Academy. I think it's in Branson. Trey Johnson just spent his last year there as well. Jordan Walsh went there, former Arkansas star, now in the NBA too. So plenty of high-end talent comes through there. Like they are up there with, not quite the Montverdes but right there with the Sunrise Christian, Hillcrest Prep, all of these kind of schools. Finlay Prep used to be a big one in Nevada, that are bringing in all kinds of talent from all over the country and playing a national schedule. So Bill Armstrong comes from there, as well as a lot of time in the college basketball game as well. He was the associate head coach for Will Wade at LSU, which doesn't sound great if you know that is how how that ended, but I will say that's actually pretty legal in college basketball now, so I don't think that's that bad. Also spent 6 years as an assistant at Ole Miss. He was the coordinator of basketball ops there too, so a lot of experience in Power 5 college basketball. And of course, like I mentioned, Baylor has benefited from the Link Academy program with someone like Jacoby Walter, and obviously Scott Drew and his recruiting staff would have had a great relationship in the Trey Johnson chase as well. So good news there for Baylor. I personally, I like having someone coming from the high school ranks, especially when you look at one of these factories of high school basketball, which is what high school basketball is now. You're getting them from these academies. And to bring in someone like that when you have lost your two best recruiters, I think is a major, major plus, because, he obviously has great relationships in the high school game, but it also shows me that he can identify talent early on in a recruiting cycle. And when Baylor is so big in terms of developing and forging relationships with these kids early on, you hear about that from every top prospect that comes here. That is a big, that a guy like Bill Armstrong can identify that talent early in their high school career, because he's trying to get them to come to Link Academy the last couple of years. So that I think is a good hire. I really do. I'm not just saying that, but I think that's a good step forward for the Bears, and we'll hopefully hear by the end of the week who that second guy is and get everything officially official. Anyway, let me know what you think about the Bears adding Bill Armstrong to the staff and what direction that could lead this program. Let me know what you think about the additions they made on the defensive side for the football team. Drop that down in the comments below. Is that going to be as big a help as I think it is? And about the NFL draft, does it matter to you that nobody gets drafted from Baylor? Are we simply just, hey, let's worry about what's going on the field, which is also not great right now? But I'm interested to hear from college fans what you guys think about that. Drop that down in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. Hit that notification button when we are dropping our episodes every day on YouTube, and as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for making it your first listen today and every day. We're going to be back tomorrow with hopefully some good news on your favorite program, which is, of course, Locked On Baylor.